facilities are.
I was wondering.
All right, in the essence of everybody's time, I think we'll definitely, it's already after 4 o'clock. Get on with it. So really, thank you all for coming. I'm glad we have air conditioning today. Right? But it's nice and sunny out, so we'll try and move this along. So first I'd like to say thank you for everybody who's been coming and who's been contributing. I know we have some people who've done extra work. Jen's going to give us a presentation, and Mr. Bennett was nice enough to do some land research for us and those types of things. And everybody's been working hard behind the scenes doing their special part. And if you haven't done anything yet, you may be called to do something. So I look forward to that. So thank you all for being so kind and patient with me as well. And Barbara's home. She's been away for a couple of meetings, so yes. Kicking her butt back in action. Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to review. We already voted on our mission statement. So just want to review for those people that haven't been here. Last meeting we did vote on our mission statement objective for this group. So I just want to make sure that we're all going to start the meeting off on the same page as to what our actual goal is for this group. So educate the community, especially taxpayers, about the town of Jackson's public facilities in order to determine the highest and best use of existing facilities, as well as facilities we do not have but may determine need before. So that means we're educating the community on what we have, land parcels, buildings, those types of things. It's amazing when people think we own and we don't own or we don't know. So that's a good thing. And then looking to the community to say, what do we want without leading them? You know, we have a really diverse community, well-educated community who live in different areas and come back here. Well, what would they like to see in our town? So in the future. So those are what we're looking at. This is not a capital campaign by any stretch. Okay, we're just supposed to do this, and we are obligated to turn our reports and findings back into the selectmen. Our hope is for the February meeting at the latest, so that we can have it back to them for March and see what happens with the community from there. For those who don't know, Janice Crawford was also hired for the last meeting. She's going to have to be facilitator, do background work, minutes, all those types of things, so that those of us who are volunteering don't have to do this. So thank you. All right, so with that, we would like to move on to approve the minutes from the last meeting, which you all have a copy of. Oh, yeah. So we're loosely following Robert's rules, so if someone could make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting. So moved. Second. Thank you, Joyce. And any discussion? No? All right, so all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. And I like to stand because that's what I do for a living. So I stand, so I can't sit. All right, so we've done that. So we're going to jump right in. Mr. Bennett has some homework, and he's going to review what his findings were. So thank you.
Well, I looked into I've looked into it before, the Wildcat townhouses, where we have, it all started with a tax lien, I can't even remember how many, 10, 12 years ago. Anyway, what we ended up with was development rights. We don't own any land. We don't own anything up there. At one time, I think we had one of the units. D. McClave came up with the idea that we would put our transients or homeless people up there, and immediately the taxes were paid off, and the owner took that back so that we wouldn't do that. But we don't have anything as far as, land, but we have the rights. And the best advice that we got from town council was if we could talk with the present owner, if he had any desire to build more, he would have to get those rights from us. And that would be a good, I think there would be a financial negotiation there. And that would be the best outcome that we can come up with.
Great. Does anyone have any questions on that? So we reviewed our whole list of what the town properties are last meeting, and then a few came up. This was the biggest one that we're like, what?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't hold any promise for us if we wanted to build something there, so it does not, is what we're saying.
Could you explain how we have rights?
That's what I was
Yeah,
doing.
I mean,
Was it an
It's something we
exchange?
could possibly.
It's like having mining rights. You don't own the land, but you
Right.
have the rights to extract minerals. We have the building rights, so he can't do any further development without
the
those
town.
rights. So that will be the negotiation, hopefully, to the financial benefit of the town.
Is it also true that, I'm assuming this is just, it's a condo lease, your land, it's a land lease that we have, so we could build condos, not that we would want to, but we could also sell to another developer, maybe somebody who would build workforce housing, affordable housing, and this town could sell to that developer as opposed to the person who currently owns
I
it.
thought that that would be an opportunity for affordable housing.
Mhm.
You know, that would be part of the negotiation of allowing further development on land that we have the rights to. As far as what we could sell to an outside contractor, I'm not sure.
I actually
Because we
do
wouldn't
have
own the
some
land.
research on this because when I first became selectman, somebody asked about this, so I can pull that from my notes as well and elaborate on it and send something out to the group. But yeah, I don't think we have any monetary, anything that's going to make us a monetary amount unless we sell it back to the current owner. And I believe he has not just first right of refusal, but I don't.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I believe he does, so. And there have been other issues in the background too, that is why we still have it on our books.
Mhm.
May I ask a clarifying question? So this person who owed taxes, who...
Owed taxes.
Oh, right, and then paid them as soon as he found out that something might happen he didn't want.
That
Is
part,
that the developer of the whole property?
it goes back, I think, a generation in that family to the father who is deceased, who had was first in arrears. And then I think brought out for the existing building, which is, I think, 8 units up there. But the rights for further development have stayed with the town.
Right. So if he decided, if he's obviously got enough land that if he wanted to build another 8-unit parcel,
He'd
he would have to
come
come to
us.
you and get approval on everything, and that's when you could start talking about workforce and that sort of
Correct,
thing.
right. We'll give you 4 units if you'll build 4 affordable units, and then we'll pass over those rights to you.
And at this point, when you talked about, is there any money in it, the only money would be if he wants to buy that right back
Right.
from you, just to get you out of his...
Well, just on a straight deal, we wouldn't just say, oh yeah, we'll give you those rights again. No, we want at least something for either figure out what the back taxes were, or what they might have been, or, you know, that's why it's a negotiation, I don't know.
So does that become, I'm just wondering if that becomes something that you sort of keep in your back pocket of, we may not want that to be on a list like this. Let's clean this up. What will you give us for it? And try to negotiate that. Maybe, I'm just trying to, okay.
Dick, do you know the maximum potential for the remaining land?
I don't.
So, I mean, if we're talking about 1 or 2 units, it's one thing, but if it's
Right, it's
12
whatever
units.
the septic
I thought
would
it was one
accept,
unit.
I think.
Oh,
Okay, so we should find out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those details are available, and I've seen them at some point when we're looking at stuff, but I can't off top tell you.
We'll put
So
that
the-
on for further review.
Yeah.
We'll find out a little bit more for next meeting, but thank you, Dick. And you were mentioning before the meeting another opportunity for some land
Oh,
or...
I was looking at the one at Jackson Highlands
Mhm.
to try to figure out, how the town ended up with a strip along the road. Can't figure it out. I mean, why, but we have it. I mean, it is town land. It certainly, I think, would be beneficial to a butter
Right.
to go ahead and,
It
sell
was,
it to
it was
them.
part of that meeting,
Yeah.
right, but, it's not buildable, right, so it's not really,
You
it's a
know.
mute point for us. in
It
this.
will never be of any value to the town other than a little strip along the road.
It's no different than really the roadway.
Right.
I mean, we own the roadway, we own
Yeah, so
the
it's not,
adjoining
it
property.
doesn't really, it would never benefit us in what our purpose is.
This is a little more than these 50-foot right-of-way.
Right,
So it's another strip along there, but,
But it's not the only value it really has.
yeah.
yeah.
For use.
Okay, so thank you. I think that's all.
Sorry,
Yeah.
could the value not be in the land, but in maintaining the aesthetic? Like keeping it a certain corner, like meadowed or forested, like could that be the value of the land versus not having it? I'm just wondering if there's another value to that.
I don't see any value other than to the abutter.
Okay.
You know, the town doesn't need it to hold on to anything, or there's no further right-of-way that we need. You know, so I think the 50-foot right-of-way that goes through there is sufficient for on into the future road. And this little strip of land, it's either going to sit there and we'll own it, or if we can make a deal with the abutter, I think that would be a good way, and get it on the tax rolls, and then we get,
I think Ginger has insight onto that.
Well,
Yeah.
because at the town meeting,
Right.
it's not just the abutter, it's the other neighbors that are on that road that it concerns. And I'd rather have them speak to you about it, because it's a very passionate, for whatever reason, it's a very passionate subject for them. Because I don't know what the abutter, whether they were gonna clear cut or something, but the neighbors definitely did not want that. They want to keep the integrity of the forested
Yeah.
look going up.
It was the placement of the driveway that
Right.
the neighbors were gonna put in, and I believe we didn't create an actual easement to it, but we did agree to hold on to the property for the width of the road, and that we wouldn't have to create any new culverts. It would also make sure that the driveway was put off of the other road and that access, so it did maintain the integrity of the road for everyone that lives on Jackson Highlands Road, so it didn't become a strip of either cut or anything, or lose that width of the road, like you said, with the right of way.
But it's very passionate for that.
Yes,
And it was the value as well. I think.
Right.
People were saying, I'd buy it for that.
Yeah.
Just
Correct.
because you're
Correct.
right
The whole
next to it.
purpose
It's
is
just
buy
to
it
the
there.
side.
that's actually how we got Jen on the committee here, because we didn't know her before at that time. I didn't know her
Yeah.
for the town meeting, and you were very well spoken at that meeting about that too. So it was a good outcome.
The trouble with selling it to somebody else other than the abutter is, okay, the landowner wants to put the driveway in rather than going up to the top of the property, which they can do. And so they want to go across that. So this other entity owns it. Oh, yeah, well, $50,000, for an easement, say. And I think that it's the fairest thing is to offer to the abutter for the appraised value. We have the town assessor has a value on it. I think what was it, 20,000, 30,000?
It was 32,000 is the value on the books, and we were going to
Okay,
settle at
so we put
25, but
that-
we just decided not to.
To the abutter, and then it's on the tax rolls. And that's, I think, the benefit to the town.
But it's not a facility, it's not anything that's.
Right,
gonna
so
be
we can
this
move on.
organization.
We can move on.
I appreciate it as an asset of the town, but if we want to talk about all of our assets of the town, we'll
Right.
be here till the cows come home and we won't accomplish anything that we're trying to do. So I would suggest
Thank you, Bill. Okay.
move it on.
All right, so we had Janice do some research with the North Country Council. She reached out to them, so what did you find out about that?
Yeah, this was after Emily had opened that door, which is great. I spoke with Stacy Dahl, and basically what she was offering was during COVID, they did a resiliency survey. And they learned a lot about economic development needs of the area. And they have a dog and pony show, so to speak, where they would come and show you what those results of that survey, that going around and talking to different businesses and finding out what people felt was needed for economic development. And she would come and do that. It would take about an hour. It would be free of charge, and it would be, I think, just an opportunity to get more information, which might inform some of your decision-making. It's not completely specific to facility review, but it might be of interest to you to see how COVID may have changed the resiliency and the economic development aspects of the communities that they serve.
Would there be any focus on Jackson specifically?
She could pull out the information from the Jackson area and do some comparisons for you.
I think it would be worth doing, and I think we've also decided we wanted to do that as a listening post for the community.
I would definitely open it up to the community, because that's part of your goal, is this educational opportunity with your citizens, and it would be a nice way to start bringing them in.
And they give us dates of September 20th and 27th.
I know this 20th is a select meeting, so the 27th would definitely work out better, and I'm just also personal.
So those 2 dates in mind. We could also do like our meeting before then, or directly after, but we can talk about that later. But I would suggest we take the 20th or the 27th, but selectmen would be meeting, so that if the 27th works for a majority of us, we can start getting the word out to the community at large, and we'll talk about what else might be on that agenda for the community. But if we just nail down a date at this moment, I think that would be healthy.
I think the 27th is fine, but I think we need to think about the time, making sure it's late enough.
Yes, we want people who are working to come.
So that was yeah, good point, because if it is the 20th, also the select meetings are from 3:30 usually to 4:30 or 5, so if we get to it after that, it's not like I'm prohibiting that date, I'm just thinking blocking that out, it would be great to do it after if we want people to, so.
So, do you have any preference for the 20th or the 27th?
I prefer the 20th, but that's
20th?
totally personal.
Just saying fire meeting, not that there's, that much to do with it. Tuesday, first and third.
Tuesday, I imagine.
This gives us a little more time.
Yeah, the 27th is, I have personal commitments on the 20th as well, that would be sad for me.
27th at 7 p.m.?
27th, you can do like 7 p.m. It'll be a little later for some. I recommend that we try to get some childcare as well.
Yeah.
You know, pull out all the stops, you know, bells and whistles, you know, the community day, so.
Would you want it in here?
Here,
Yeah.
and we'll have the PTO try to get childcare for the school.
Yeah.
And again, if folks haven't had a chance to go on, I think I'd send a link to the resiliency work that they've been doing. It went beyond a survey, they had focus groups really looking at education, healthcare, child and family services, arts and culture. So it's kind of a broad view of the region. While it's not Jackson specific, we're not alone. We need to look beyond the covered bridge and those influences. So it's, yeah, I think it's a great overview. It's something that they want to reach out to communities because, again, you get this input, okay, now what? And as COVID continues to go on, how does it, you know, kind of control practices and stuff like that, so.
So I think that would be a good community jumping board, you know, for that meeting,
Yeah.
and we'll make sure we have our ducks in a row. So we'll do it the 27th, 7 p.m., get childcare, and then we'll come back, let's circle back to that meeting in more detail, what we're going to do, because I'd like to move on to what Jen would like to present, because she has set a hard set to leave at 5.
Yeah.
So Jen was amazing and did some work for us in conjunction with information from Dick, our plan block.
So basically, I'm a visual learner, and so looking at the list and the tax maps and the acreage and just hearing how we all sort of cycle through that information throughout all of our different meetings. Wake up. I thought that it might be helpful to our community to put together sort of a more visual presentation of what we're looking at. So this is just a PowerPoint presentation, and I'll sort of just go through it briefly, but I'm looking for someone to help me
With the lights?
flush this out. Oh, the lights is great.
Hit the lights. That was the easy part, I know.
Yeah. So I did my part. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. Okay, so basically, I just started out with just a mission statement, reminding people what our mission is. I did tweak that a little bit so it didn't end in a preposition, so I'll send that, that may bother me. Table of contents, and then this big pending map. So Julie is working on getting me this base cover map without all of the data and color coding on it, so that I can go through and mark the properties with correlating numbers, which I'll then pull out to each of these. And so here we have a picture of the town office. It says where it's located. It's going to house municipal functions and the police department. There's a picture of the police department. And it also lists the tax map information. If, you know, we can add in the website for the town on this page as well. And then it just goes through, again, like the library. And I thought this would be a great place to add information about the library was moved to this location in this year. And it was, I don't remember all of the names about it. Like if it's the Turkey Barn and you know, I know there was a lot of community investment in that process, and I felt like it was, all that information is out there, but if we're gonna present this, it'd be a great place to add it. Again, so highway garage. Fire station, and again, this is rough. So the station provides accommodations for what and is equipped with how many pieces of equipment. Gray's Inn, I didn't get there to take a picture. The old library has a really great summary on the town website. And then I went ahead and mentioned that the old library is town-owned, but located on property owned by Protestant Chapel Association. I think that's correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So if there are nuances, it would be helpful to include.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah,
To
right?
have the nuances.
Yeah.
And then, again, just the historical society, transfer station, right? And I didn't have a photo for the townhomes, but we might not even include that, or include it at the back and say, these are these other properties that are more nuanced that we're looking into at this time, something like that. Our cemeteries. I didn't make it to Dundee Road this morning. Mill Street Cemetery. And then land. So Prospect Farm, Jackson Falls, the ball fields. For lack of better names, the gazebo green space, the unnamed park, and Profile Rock.
This is great, Jen.
Yeah.
Excellent.
The transfer site, Black Mountain parking, and then Thornhill. And then the really small parcels that we were just sort of talking about that we can provide location information about. And then we have a webpage, so we can include a link to that on this. But I just thought this would be a good way for us to start to educate people. So my question to you is, it is long, but it's not really that much information. Do you think it would be helpful to include, like on the town office, a smaller like location map for people to find it? I mean, everybody knows where the town office is, right? Okay. All right.
And you're gonna correlate it back to the,
Right.
so, no,
Yeah.
that's more work than you.
Okay. So Julie's just reached out to the map company that produced this to ask them for the blank copy. And I just haven't, she hasn't back to me yet.
This is huge, this is
Yeah.
perfect, yeah, we can definitely use this, I think, as a listening post, link it to the, you know, our notes on the website, as well as, you know, sending it out beforehand and stuff, so this is really nicely done, thank you.
You're welcome.
I do like having a website. If any of those buildings have their own specific website, then definitely having that on there helps a lot.
Yeah. And we can add even just the links to their pages on the town website. I just, I started this morning and I didn't get that far. So,
Yeah, I think anything to not duplicate the work that's already there.
Agreed.
And to drive people to these different parts of the website, because all the time I'm saying, it's on the town website.
yeah,
It's on the town website.
there's a lot there.
But the school, there's a question, does the town own the school land?
No.
It
Says
says
that
it controls it, but
It
it
says the
has.
school owns, the
Yeah,
school owns.
school owns.
Well, so does the town own it because.
I guess my question is, and I don't understand New Hampshire very well, but a school, I understand the school is controlled by a school entity, but the property and the facilities and all the like actually belong to something called a school, or do they belong to the town? I guess I'm a taxpayer, I think I pay for all that. I don't think I pay to some entity called the school. I know in Connecticut, the schools are owned by the municipality. There's no distinction, and I don't understand the
Yeah, no,
distinction.
the town owns the school, they pay the budget, the town owns the school. So if someday we ever wanted to make the school into like McDonald's, you could do that.
Okay, so,
Should it be included as?
so that's my question. Why is it?
It's not
why
a
is
complete
it
list. I mean, yeah, so it's certainly just started this morning.
Yeah. Certain
Yeah.
community facility, but, yeah.
So I'll add the school. The
The
other
town is the
suggestion that I didn't include, but we talked about at the last meeting, was including a section for, like a list of other community buildings not owned by the town. So like the Whitney Center.
Well,
right?
if the Whitney, if the town owns the school, the town owns the Whitney.
Okay.
But it's controlled by the school.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
makes
what's really
sense.
going to be
Yeah.
of putting it
So-
on there, because the town, that's the oversight committee.
Right.
To make sure the town gets access.
But to the extent there are going to be needs to fund improvements, whether it be to the school or to the Whitney Center, that's going to come from the town. So for those reasons, they need to be brought to folks' attention. And then there's a historical society, among others.
That was on.
It was the town hall.
Yeah, the old town hall.
So I'll be sure to add the school and the Whitney Center, and I think, you know, adding a statement like in the old library summary that designates that you could reach out to me and we can connect and talk about what that language is about the oversight of the buildings. And that way it's included. That would be really great. And so I guess by that token, you know, maybe I will look at the town website and try to make sure that I have all the associated pages, but if you are connected to one in particular or have that information, if you could
Maybe you
connect
could
me
work,
for-
maybe Emily could help you.
Well, I was going to say Firehouse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
She could, if you send the document to her, she could add in websites and information. And do you need help with like more pictures of other places or?
I mean, if folks are driving around the small parcels I don't have pictures of, so I have one of like, if anybody likes driving around and taking pictures, I'm good with that. I can give you an assignment. So yeah.
Kathleen, let's take a picture.
And what about the water precinct? Would that be?
That's a great question. Does that fall under this category, or is that,
The water precinct.
Yeah.
or is that
Well, it should be,
Yeah.
somebody nice.
included? Yeah.
Right.
They're in the town budget.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep, we'll add that in.
So, and I'm sure, yeah, we're not expecting you to know all the information.
Nope.
That's where our house,
Yeah.
that 44 December is all the other.
Right, this is a collective, and I appreciate you
Yep.
really taking the
Yeah.
time and effort to do this. This is wonderful. So
Great.
Thank you so much.
Happy to
And
help.
I can coordinate anything relative to the library.
Which is another facility owned by the town but controlled by
Right, so
Yeah.
by another organization other than the town.
So all of the buildings and, that were on the list, that's on the town's website are included in this now, except for, Whitney, the school, the water precinct, and then I didn't get to all of the little,
guys.
the little parcels. So, but Gray's Inn is there. Again, just, I didn't flesh out all the content for that.
Yeah, question, the Gray's Inn properties, would that include the facility that's next to Flossie's?
That's what you're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah,
That is-
that is,
yes.
that is it, yeah.
It's in garage.
Yes.
Yeah, and the current uses, I think that there's a building that is fascinating to share.
Yes.
Nothing happens there. Don't tell that to the town guys, or the library.
Or the library.
Right? There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, all of our,
It's a little town
books are
jewel.
stored there
Yeah.
for book sales
So,
purposes, you know, more space.
So Jen, maybe it would be helpful, I don't know, if you shared the document, we put it on the shared doc so that people can go in
Yeah.
and make suggestions that would be helpful, like, oh, the library, or, oh,
Yep.
this, and then people could edit information, like putting on the right, URL.
Sounds great.
Things of that nature, so that you're not doing it all.
Sounds good.
Does that sound fair enough?
Yeah.
Because I think we
however you
have
want
several
to do it,
people.
whatever you guys.
Yeah, whatever's easier for you.
So I created it in a different design tool, but it's exported as a PowerPoint, so folks can go in and do that, and then I can make adjustments if we need to, if that works for everybody.
That would be great.
I'm also happy if you just want to send me the appropriate links or whatever, so.
I think if they want to go through it,
Yeah.
and then it jogs their mind, like, oh,
Yeah.
and then they can email or however, I think that would be really helpful.
That'd be great.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great.
I think if we can also maybe think about, if we could set a target date for when the edits are made, and then we can send it out, through the, Jackson E-News and other things, just so people can acquaint themselves with,
Right. Could be included in the invitation.
right,
That's what I was wondering.
yeah.
Yeah, as like, this is things that we're going to be discussing,
Yep.
so I would say a week.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
next,
That's the 9th, I think.
so the 9th, if you could have all your revisions in to Jen by the 9th,
Yep.
and then she could have it ready by the week after that.
Yeah.
The 16th, and that gives us a week. Yeah.
Where would the ambulance folks fit in here? I mean, I know it's housed in Bartlett, but it's also a facility, is it not, for Jackson?
It's not a facility in town. It's again managed by a separate budget, and we pay a portion of the budget each year, so it's,
Is that considered a facility or not? Is it
No.
a town facility, or is it just a funding mechanism?
it's a funding mechanism, because the facility is actually owned by the Bartlett Fire.
Okay, and what about the transfer station? Is that,
That was on there.
I know that's there, I'm trying to think through
So
I
the,
mean, the one is housed in Bartlett, but we fund it. The other is housed in Jackson,
Yeah.
but we
It's
co-fund
actually
it.
on Bartlett property, believe it or not.
It's actually,
the transfer is actually on both Jackson and
The
Bartlett.
driveway part is on
Bartlett.
Jackson, and the building is on Bartlett.
Yeah.
Because because anytime we get a complaint, we can't do anything up there because we don't have the authority.
So is it or is it not a facility then of Jackson?
Yeah, I don't, it's not.
If you're using that
That's
same
an-
definition, I
it's
guess
the
I'm
same-
trying to
Yeah, it's the same
understand
thing where
how
we have
we're
a budget
related.
that we contribute to each year, but it's
Kind
not.
of like the high school, we give money, but you have no say.
Yeah. That should be like on the other items of discussion, you know, we don't actually own this,
It's a complicated
but it's
facility.
part of,
Yes.
but it's part of
But in
tax
terms of a
dollars.
survey, I think that's something that might come up. you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. That's some kind of-
Improvements on these, or,
Yeah.
are people happy with the way they're working?
Yeah.
So I think
Right.
it should be maybe.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand that, because it's just fuzzy. It's
Yeah.
it's like, well,
Yeah.
and we think of, I think of the transfer station as Jackson. And I don't think of the ambulance as being Jackson, I think of it as Bartlett, but I think both of them are
Yeah.
equally,
Bill, if you
Well, the
could,
tax
if you
dollars-
could send that information to Jen, those questions or
Okay.
your
Yeah.
input
okay.
to Jen, and then I think that would be added on. That's an excellent point, so, and I think it would be fair to a discussion. And if people said in the survey that came back that they want X, Y, and Z for the transfer station, it would be up to us, or the selectmen, or the transfer committee, to go to Bartlett and say, we need to work on this, you know, this is whatever.
Mhm.
So it's a town usage
Yeah.
or
It's a shared
service,
facility.
so it falls under service, which is also things that we're talking about, so, great. So yeah, I think having a visual of your presentation in front of people will prompt these other thoughts to get back to you. So we have a week, if we read on the 9th, to get our edits back, or questions back to Jen, and then Jen, if you want to reach out to Barbara or I, or whatever, if you want. And then the 16th, we'll have it completed, and I think that would be great. We can send it out with a reminder message for the meeting, because we'll obviously be posting the listening post well before.
And we can have that
taped.
taped.
Pardon?
We'll have that.
Yes, tape, yes.
Oh, yeah, that'd be taped,
Yeah.
right, Hank?
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome.
Great, so with that in mind, we have that. We have the NCC, and then we have the presentation for the listening post. I think that would be a good catalyst for that meeting to say, we are going to be sending out a survey to the community with these thoughts in mind, like these are our goals. So I think instead of working on survey questions, what I'd really like to focus on is what are our goals for the survey? Because we have some great opportunity in our town of people who actually make surveys. So if we give them our goals, I think it would be easy for them to come up with questions that will get them our answers to the goals. So instead of us trying to figure out something that other people get paid a lot of money to already do, and have done it for decades, I think just sending out what our goals are for the survey would be really helpful. And then they can generate a draft survey that we can then take a look at. And then we can also inform the community at that meeting and before that this is coming. So be on the lookout for it. Your input is valuable,
Yeah.
you know, that type of thing. So with that in mind, I don't have a little board, sorry. But I'll take down the notes. Jan is here to take down those. What do we think some of our goals are for the survey?
I think it's to determine perception about how, if our facilities are meeting the needs, right? Because folks who use each of these different facilities are gonna have different reasons and different uses, and it might, you know, it'd be good to hear from each of them if they feel that their needs are being met.
So, good.
I have a question about the survey, and I wish David was here because of his brain, and that's what he does, but are we going to be asking open-ended questions for people to comment on so we can gather those versus say, do you think our facilities are being well used? Yes or no?
Well, I think that's more for Dave
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
So if we assess a goal,
Yeah.
then he can figure out.
So that's-
I'm sure they'll be blended, yes.
That's where we're starting. Okay.
Great.
Gotcha.
So one of mine would be, not to jump in,
Yeah.
but what other needs do you feel you would like in our community? And that would definitely be
What needs
open-ended.
Are
It
not
could be
being met
anything.
by the facilities that we have.
Right, and it doesn't have to be a facility,
Yeah.
because a facility is an end game, but you can put any service in a facility. facility.
Well, and that's, yeah.
So we have to, it's kind of a two thing, like what, if this community comes back and says, well, we want, you know, Meals on Wheels in our town, or we want affordable housing, or we want, like, we need to know that information regardless if we have a facility
Yeah.
that can accommodate it at this time.
Yeah.
That's not, you know what I'm saying? There's
Yeah,
two
yeah.
separate things.
Yeah.
You know, if we can augment a building or a facility that we own to make it work, fine.
Yeah.
But if we don't, then we have another, you know, then the planning board or whatever has another task at hand. You know, so that's what part of our objective is not to just cookie cut or make fit, retrofit our buildings. It's really what are our buildings,
Yeah.
but what are our needs as a community? And that doesn't necessarily equate to, it has to fit in this building. So that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, what do we need? Is it more elder care? Is it, you know, anything? So I'd like to leave that open-ended for the community. And again, they've lived, like a lot of people, you just traveled and, like, what did you see that was so amazing to have? Like, oh, I would love to have that in our community, like a town fountain. I don't know, what's a copy of the Trevi
We've got some
fountain.
great stuff, but there's also like, this town has got it together.
Yeah.
So,
So just looking for open-ended questions. I mean, we can get pretty much the demographics already. We're gonna know that because they're our tax base, we should know that. But what other, like, open-ended or specific question are we looking for somebody, you know, from the communities, what I'm looking for?
Back when we started doing the survey, when we were whiteboarding it, we had a list of all of the different, either websites or Jackson Bridge and Jackson Beaches and all that. Is that something that we still want to include? Like, check off the ones that you've heard of and use and know about, or do we send out?
I don't think that, I think that would be our tool to send out the survey.
Yeah.
But I don't, that's a different survey.
Yeah,
I mean, really, we only have a snapshot of minutes with people.
yeah.
And that doesn't, to me, that doesn't,
It doesn't have anything to do with.
I feel like that would be,
or serve that. I don't know.
that could be a really good thing for the town to send out separately. Because there's like the school board is working through, developing a survey also. And we're developing this survey and we need, first of all, I'll just say that we need to make sure that we coordinate those surveys amongst
Yes.
these two groups so that we're not hitting at the same time and asking the same questions and like, but I do think that like maybe Julie Atwood put together a survey just saying like, hey, we're trying to figure out like what the best method is for reaching everybody. Can you just tell us what you're using?
I'll even take it on, and maybe we'll just put it in the town report and say, here are all the different ways to
That's a
communicate.
great
Yes.
idea.
And we'll just tackle it at that
And the
versus
school
putting it
survey
out.
has nothing to do with this.
Oh,
Okay.
I know it's not, but
it's
if it
proposal.
hits on September 20th, and we're planning to do one on September 27th, then it might hurt both.
They're not anywhere near ready to do this.
Well, yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like, it's still important that we
Right.
coordinate those for the timing so that folks, so that we can both generate appropriate responses. That's all. it's-
I have a good friend on the school board.
Okay.
So I'll let you know.
Uh-huh.
Sleep with there.
Those
Yes,
people
they
are hard to reach.
I know, they're really hard to read. They're never, but good point. So I take that. So what other things do we want from this survey? Facilities meeting our needs of our community. Do we want to get more like services? Do you know what services you want in this community? Or what services do you like that we have? What services do you foresee that we want or are lacking?
Or, yeah, and we had talked about too a 10-year plan, like,
Yep.
what do we see for the future? I mean, I don't know what this bill coming through is in terms of energy and, you know, but what is it that the town could take advantage from that? Can we create a facility or get money for, you know, get a grant for, I mean, this building should have solar. Things like that, like looking down the line.
Yeah, like, or do we want to upgrade some of our facilities to include solar, right? You know,
Yeah, I know you worked on that. The others. It's another project for you, Dick.
Well, don't we also want to get a sense of what types of improvements our facilities and then try to get an idea of how people perceive priorities in terms of spending dollars.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'd look to the town to say that Gray's Inn needs improvement. That would be from the select people or a subcommittee who already, the facilities committee, the real one, that knows that this building, the backside's falling off or whatever. But the second part of your question is definitely,
The priority aspect?
yeah, yes.
Yeah, because when
But
you're
then
asking
you're leading
questions
somebody.
like, yeah, what needs are being met or aren't being met? Do you feel like an improvement or a renovation would be better than a new facility, you know? And how do you gauge your priorities on that, like you said? Because when we were at town meeting and it was, you know, no, we need to put a hold on things until we decide we definitely need a new fire station or we need a new school infrastructure, and seeing how people do prioritize that would be interesting. School above fire station above this, or vice versa, or.
And that might be a second wave, you know, once we
Yeah.
get
It seems to
a
me
group
that
of what we
it's
want,
hard.
that maybe is this service more important than the fire station?
Right.
Like, you know, those types of things.
And
Or
then
in
like
timeline.
graphics too, because your younger families might see it differently than some of the.
So we have services, would you like?
And part of the purpose of this happening at the town meeting, its result, is that people weren't knowing what the other one was doing. So, you know, this is supposed to be a pretty good representative, I don't know if it is necessarily, of, you know, the different age groups in town and, you know, people with different priorities. But also are we going back with a recommendation of, okay, if we're going to create a budget, these seem to be the priorities that people feel, is that?
We're not doing a budget.
We're not doing that, yeah.
No. We're just doing the priorities,
Okay.
whether it's a service or a facility or a perceived need.
Yeah, I'm not saying numbers,
Yep.
I'm just saying
Yep, nope.
what facilities, yeah.
And they could ask us at the
Yeah,
next
okay,
meeting to
good.
reconvene and go out and do more.
So said differently, then what we're trying to do is quantify what our facilities are and what things we feel we need, not necessarily how we're going to achieve some of the goals that may be identified as part of this process.
I don't think we have enough time to do that.
No, that's what I'm saying. To try to make sure that we're not trying to do everything all at once.
No, I would envision that we take this information and hand it to the selectmen, and they can utilize it as they see fit, or ask us to delve more into one or the other. But really, it's very basic information. We're calling the community, educating the community.
Obviously, you can disagree, but
Right.
I'm trying to listen.
Right, well, that's our objective, so.
Well, I guess to that point, like, do you want in the presentation of our facilities to have like current use and then, you know, do we want to delineate any issues that currently exist that are known? So, or deficiencies or benefits. So like, I hear that the old library had bathrooms updated and it's being underused, but you know, so that would be sort of a thing of note, whereas, you know, maybe the fire department has a particular need, or like, you know, an expansion was completed to house a new fire department, but we still need blah, 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 blah. Like, would that be helpful to include in that?
My opinion on that is that's what we're trying to have them answer. So
Okay.
when we feed them that information, I feel like, you know, because that's going to be my opinion. You have a fire station, you know, I could say we need a new one or we need $1 million in improvements, but that's my opinion. And then, you know, I want people to come back to us where it says, do you feel the needs are being met? Yeah, I think the fire department is fantastic the way it is.
But for example, if the back of the fire department's falling off and I never see it because it's on the back side of the building and I'm not in the fire department, how do I know that the back of the building is falling off?
Well, I think that's up to the facilities or the fire department to raise that issue with the town.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a meshing of this information and, you know, obviously maintenance and whatever we need to do, so.
Okay.
We're not
I'm
looking
not
to
saying
solve
that the
the
back of it is falling off. To be clear.
You have it!
How did she
Just
know
looks
that?
But
Don't touch the wall.
That's a
Just
really
walk.
good point though, because, you know, then it's the department heads and the owners of those facilities' jobs to attend meetings and make public knowledge that, yeah, we we do need an infrastructure infusion for this building or that service or whatever.
That's regular maintenance for me, that's, yeah. Emily, you were gonna say something?
Well, so I just kind of picking up on Bill, what you were saying, and this is actually kind of looking back to June, I think, was the role of the planning board. Did you say that there's a master plan, like the process was going to be coming up in a couple of years again, like the formal master plan, having to do that again? That
We
this is
need
gonna-
to be recertified by the Board of Selectmen to do that, yes.
Okay, so that hopefully this will all, because I know that was a frustration for you, right? That like, wait a second, whose is this job? That hopefully all of this will be really facilitating that process. Like, hey, here's a bunch of
We're
information.
planning to, like, my goal is to, you
Yeah.
haven't been there, but yes, that's the goal
They
is to
all
hand it on a silver
in
platter.
that mission.
Yeah,
So
here you go.
continues on. And then to the point about people not knowing about stuff, that by the way, the firehouse, the whole thing was studied. So here's the link to
Yeah.
that information on the
Right,
website.
right.
So you can review it. So-
So we have facilities, you know, are they meeting our needs or not? What do you think? Needs of our community. I put in energy, solar, like that kind of question, so I'm not sure how to word that, but services like that we think are missing, or that we like. You know, I wrote for someone, which was, before you said it, Emily, was the town plan timeline. If somebody asks, we're aware of where we are in that phase and the potential for this information to help facilitate and help them move on with that. Any other, like, broad, you know, for the survey?
My other question was, and I guess it's going back to Janice, was with the North Country Council, did they say that they had, because I thought we were going to ask them for also for some, if there was some guidance for survey questions.
She was going to look and see if
Okay.
there were surveys she could share with us. So I will recall her and remind her of that, so that I would send it to you, because you're going to send this to David.
Yeah, so so I would like to take, and that was also a hope, is that I had something, and then we can kind of mesh it a little bit, or give it to David and say, here's some successes. So is there anything else that's burning in your mind as a goal for?
Just one other facility, which is one of these quasi facilities, the church. The church has this really big community space behind it. It has been a preschool before. It has a playground behind it that apparently is owned by the Wentworth. You know, there's all kinds of yeah.
You didn't know that? Oh,
yeah, there's all kinds of interesting things, but you know, that is a town facility, it seems to me. And they're happy to have the town use it, so that should be part of our thought process, I think.
Because I think this is where it's fascinating to me to ask that question about the services that people think are missing.
Yeah.
First of all, it'll be interesting to see what they say, and then to me, I look at like, oh, well, this person does that, and this person does that. But where those services could take place. So for, say, a food pantry thing, you know, could that be in the church? Or a preschool, you know, or whatever those services are, would there be a satellite thing? So, yeah, so that's a good point to have that. So it's almost, I think, having this kind of subcategories, you kind of bring up the transfer station, the firehouse, or the ambulance being at Jackson 5 or Bartlett 5. This, like, by the way, there's these other kind of complicated.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I
they're all
think,
meeting spaces that are available to the town, which, you know, there's plenty of places to kind of gather. Maybe they don't understand what they are.
or services that people don't even know we
That's it.
have.
Yeah.
Do you know you have access to use the old library, the Liberty Center?
And I think that if people, when they come, they say they have, you know, services and if they're currently offered, then that's, you know, it's a communication effort, right? Then
People moving to town, right?
Right.
We don't know, right?
Right.
You don't make good friends with the neighbor, which we're all, you know, nobody's a neighbor.
Right, it's hard to find out sometimes, so.
Actually, that's right. I want to shed you, so we work together on putting a welcome information packet that's on the website. So now I'm thinking, what did we miss? So we can do this.
I'll email you, because I used that and then added stuff to a friend who recently moved to the area.
Oh,
So
awesome.
I'll send you that.
Oh, great, good. It's-
Yeah.
We were
But it was very
brainstorming,
helpful.
but,
It was very helpful.
oh, good.
We should put J-Town on there, because if people only go over the bridge, they don't know they can get milk right. We've had people who've lived there for like 2
Yeah,
years.
groceries.
I didn't know this was here.
You don't even have to make the turn.
Anyway, so,
Yeah, I think this cuts both ways. You have things that are in town that the town doesn't own, but are facilities that, are services that can be used, that we should probably somehow categorize or otherwise, at least provide an inventory of them. The other would be of things that are outside of Jackson community that we can avail ourselves of, like Meals on Wheels or whatever, or Visiting Nurse Association, whatever those are. And maybe that's the kind of thing you have in your welcome packages or not.
That goes, yeah, too, yeah.
But it's the kind of thing that you might want to have, so people know what regional approach has been taken to some ideas as opposed to something specific in town.
Yeah.
But also what things are in town that are facilities that are town sponsored or school sponsored or whatever. But they're still facilities that are of value to everyone or to unique people within the community.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I'm interested to hear what like NCC has to say about, moving forward 10, 20 years out, what are the projected needs of a community, similar to ours, that we may not even have thought of. And that's kind of why I want to hold off on sending the survey out till after that, because
That's it.
that's the whole point. And we're working with Stacy Pryor. Thank you so much, Jen.
Welcome,
Really
enjoy.
appreciate
I
it.
look forward to your emails.
Yes.
All right, take care.
So I think we have some basic, it's high level, which is what we want. We don't want to be leading anybody. And then I'll work with Stacy from NCCC if she said anything, and I'll work with David, and hopefully get a draft going that we can add to after we all meet with NCC on the 27th, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's it. So the next date for our next meeting, do you want to have it prior to the same day as the 27th, or just so we're all on the same page and we're all active and excited for the meeting, or week before, or? I mean, I think we're waiting for some information from that meeting.
I think we should do a little bit before.
So that day?
No, I guess a lot more. The week before. Yeah, the week before?
A week before, so we can have it,
Maybe on the 16th, which is when you
yeah, our edits are
completed.
due back. We could review the presentation from Jen. That's a great idea. So it's a Friday.
Ooh. Right?
We could move it to like the 20th or the 20th. I can't do the 20th. You have a wedding or something,
Or
right?
do the 15th, the 30th. I mean, she should be able, moving that one day, shouldn't be too much of a problem for Jen. If you made it the 15th,
To have a meeting on the 15th. I won't be in town.
okay?
I'm going to be cycling across New Hampshire. Can I have all your phone numbers to come get me? Make
Are
sure
you
my
around
mom.
on the 19th?
I have a school board meeting on the 19th, which is fine. We want to meet at 4. That's fine.
19th, Monday the 19th.
So if we meet at 4, that's well enough for the school board meeting.
4 p.m.? Do you want to meet here or at the town hall?
No,
Or
we'll just
some-
meet here.
Well, didn't we decide we were going to try to
We're
meet
gonna
at
try
all
the
different
old library.
places?
We do the old library?
Yeah, there's a capacity of how many people can be there. It's 22, 26, or 28.
So we should be fine.
Yeah.
So this is good.
Yeah.
Well, do they have presentation? So that's what we're going to be looking at.
Yeah. No, there's nothing like that there. It would just
Yeah.
be,
So I think we should have it here just for the reason that we're going to be all looking at the presentation.
Actually, to be in the space would be good for that.
Right, because we're going to have that meeting here for the 27th, so we'll just have that next one here.
So what days?
The 19th at 4 o'clock here, unless the school's utilizing the building, which I don't think they are.
And Susan Ross Parent is the contact to get this
As
room.
far as I know.
I can do that if you want.
Tish can do, did it last time, yeah. And we would need the setup Tish too, which Susan did for me today, which was amazing, so. You guys are awesome, thank you so much. I know it was a lot of homework and input, so I really appreciate it. So now our job is, every person that you talk to that lives in Jackson, you have to invite them
Right.
to the meeting on the 27th, and all the time. So you have to, every time you meet them. It takes
Okay,
some
so
time for
Janice-
people to remember.
So you've got the whole North Country Council connection, Seth? Cool.
I will call her tomorrow and
Okay.
confirm.
Yeah, and Janice, don't say it's free, it's all prepaid.
That's true. The town of Jackson has paid their dues.
I like that though, thank you, that's great. It's like when you win the silent auction item. You paid for it, right?
You're not saying like, yeah, set
Win when you win on auction.
So, we're adjourning.
Adjourn, motion to adjourn. All right, thank you all so much. Go out and enjoy that heat.
To the select board.
Yes,